Breaking tonight, American political activist and Trump ally Charlie Kirk shot and killed in front of a horrified crowd.
You just hear the gunshot and I'm sorry.
Moments of panic and chaos after the influential conservative is shot while speaking at a university event.
This is a political assassination.
What witnesses and investigators say happened, plus how the 31-year-old became a political force in the U.S. and beyond. A tragic scene at a daycare near Toronto. A toddler killed, many more injured when a car crashed into the building.
This is every parent's worst nightmare.
And for decades, he witnessed and reported on crisis after crisis.
Brian Stewart, CBC News, in Santiago, Chile.
Belfast, Beirut.
Brian Stewart reflects on the stories that changed the world and the ones that changed him.
Just amazing personal story.
From CBC News, this is The National with Chief Correspondent Adrian Arsenault.
Thanks for joining us tonight. In an era of increasing threats and violence, the United States is confronting what's being called a political assassination. Prominent conservative activist and Trump family ally Charlie Kirk shot and killed in front of thousands of people. The head of the right-wing youth organization Turning Point USA was at a college campus south of Salt Lake City, doing what he has done countless times before, speaking to a large crowd of students when the shot rang out. Those horrifying moments captured on video. So we're not going to show you the exact moment Kirk was shot, but you will see what led up to it and the panic that followed. Katie Simpson starts our coverage tonight.
That's a lot of people, Utah.
Charlie Kirk drew an enthusiastic crowd, as he typically did, for a debate at Utah Valley University.
Bring the best libs that Utah has to offer.
About 20 minutes in, an audience questioner appeared to challenge one of his views.
Do you know how many transgender Americans have been mass shooters over the last 10 years?
Too many.
We're stopping the video here. Seconds later, you can hear a single gunshot, a murder in broad daylight witnessed by thousands of people.
You just hear the gunshot and I'm sorry. You just see his neck just open up and there's just so much blood that just came out. Holy shit!
Panic hits and the crowd scatters. Screaming and scared people begin running for their lives. Kirk was rushed to hospital by his private security, but there was nothing doctors could do to save him.
I want to be very clear that this is a political assassination.
President Donald Trump announced Kirk's death on social media, writing, "No one understood or had the heart of the youth in the United States of America better than Charlie. He was loved and admired by all, especially me." Kirk's friends in the MAGA media movement grieved in real time.
They're reporting that Charlie has died.
Charlie Kirk.
Kirk founded Turning Point USA, a powerful conservative advocacy group for young Americans. He's credited with helping Trump win, connecting him with younger, first-time voters, particularly men.
The right to life is paramount.
His debates generated millions of views online, unapologetically far-right on all the U.S. culture war issues, advocating for women to stay home instead of work, anti-immigration, pro-faith, anti-transgender rights.
Violence will not silence the people of the United States of America. Charlie Kirk, he spoke his mind, and under threats.
The president ordered flags lowered, including at the White House. And over in Congress,
please rise for a moment of prayer for Charlie Kirk and his family.
But the silence was interrupted by squabbling on the floor.
The House will be in order.
As the political blame game begins.
For years, those on the radical left have compared wonderful Americans like Charlie to Nazis and the world's worst mass murderers and criminals. This kind of rhetoric is directly responsible for the terrorism that we're seeing in our country today.
Authorities have questioned at least 2 people who have since been released. Police have low-quality campus security footage of the shooter and say the suspect was wearing dark clothing and was likely on a rooftop. They believe the shot was fired from a considerable distance.
So, Katie, we have seen repeated attacks like this now in the U.S. for months and months and months.
America is living through a period of intense political violence targeting all sides. You've got the murder of Charlie Kirk, the Minnesota Democrat who was killed in her home, the assassination attempts on Donald Trump, and the attempted assassination of the Democratic governor of Pennsylvania. And that's not even an exhaustive list. The concern here right now is that this already unstable moment in American politics may become even more volatile.
All right, Katie Simpson in Washington tonight. Thank you. Let's turn to Jonathan Montpetit in Montreal for a bit more on Charlie Kirk's influence and impact. So, Jonathan, already we're seeing some Canadian reaction.
That's right, and among the first to express their sympathy were leading Canadian Conservatives. Only about an hour after Kirk was shot and when his condition was still unknown, Conservative Party leader Pierre Poilievre issued this statement on Twitter, saying, "We must all strongly denounce the shooting of Charlie Kirk. Political violence is never justified. The attacker must be brought to justice, and free speech must be upheld. Pray for Mr. Kirk and his family." Alberta Premier Danielle Smith also posted a message on Twitter saying she was saddened and horrified by the shooting. Another recurring criticism among those Conservatives commenting online, criticism of Mark Carney for his silence in the immediate aftermath of the shooting.
So we heard in Katie's story, Jonathan, about Kirk's impact, but it also extended to Conservatives in this country.
That's right. His flagship organization, Turning Point USA, did try setting up branches on Canadian campuses back in 2017, but the effort never really took off. But that's not to say he didn't have influence here. Kirk was an important part of a media ecosphere made up of younger right-wing influencers who broadcast their ideas on social media and podcasts. Canada was a recurring topic on these podcasts where Kirk often amplified right-wing talking points about immigration and crime. Now, these podcasts, including Kirk's, are widely followed by many younger Canadian Conservatives in Canada.
All right, that's Jonathan Montpetit reporting in Montreal. Thank you. And just to add here, late tonight, Prime Minister Mark Carney did comment, posting on X, "I am appalled by the murder of Charlie Kirk. There's no justification for political violence, and every act of it threatens democracy. My thoughts and prayers are with his family, friends, and loved ones." So we will have more on Charlie Kirk and why he was so influential in American conservative politics. That is coming up in the breakdown. We're also following some breaking news here in this country. A devastating scene at a daycare near Toronto. A 1.5-year-old boy is dead, several other children injured after an SUV suddenly crashed into the building. Ithil Musa now with what more we are learning about how this happened.
It's a place where children are supposed to be safe. But when parents arrived at this daycare Wednesday afternoon, they learned the very worst had happened.
I can confirm that 7 children, ranging in age from 1.5 to 3 years old, were struck, along with 3 adult staff members. Unfortunately, I'm sad to announce that a 1.5-year-old boy has since been pronounced deceased.
Police say there were about 100 children inside this daycare in Richmond Hill, just north of Toronto, when an SUV crashed through the front window this afternoon. A man in his 70s was arrested, but police say they do not believe the crash was deliberate.
As you can imagine, this was a very chaotic scene.
Police say the car was in this parking lot before the crash happened. All of the children inside have been accounted for, they say, and their families were notified. This worker at another childcare facility nearby says news of the tragedy brought parents rushing there to pick up their children.
They ran and then they took their kids from our program too because they're scared. They don't know what happened. And they don't trust anymore.
Richmond Hill's mayor says this is the saddest thing he's ever experienced while on council.
I'm a parent and I'm a citizen of this community, first and foremost, and this is just something that no parent ever wants to deal with, and it doesn't matter how old your kids are. This is something that, that can be related to. This is every parent's worst nightmare.
The daycare released a statement on social media saying that they are saddened and heartbroken by today's incident and that their heartfelt condolences go out to the family of the toddler killed.
And Ithil, as I understand it, police are asking for help on this.
Yeah, that's right. They're appealing to anyone who may have seen what happened and how it unfolded today to contact them. They're also appealing to anyone that may have recorded the crash on their dash cam. Police, Adrian, also say that there will be support available for victims as well as police who responded to today's crash.
All right, Ifamusa in Richmond Hill, Ontario tonight. Thank you. Well, a teenager in Toronto is now facing multiple charges, including first-degree murder, accused of shooting and killing an 8-year-old boy.
I really want to honor my son's memory by being strong.
Javé Roy was lying in bed with his mother when he was hit by a stray bullet last month. Police say the 16-year-old, now charged, was 15 at the time of the shooting. They're looking for 2 other suspects who are 17 and 18 years old. Well, tonight, Poland is rejecting Russia's claim that its drones crossed into Polish airspace by accident. That incursion overnight triggered a rapid response from NATO, the alliance scrambling jets to shoot those drones down. Crystal Gomansing now with what is being called a dangerous escalation.
Polish officials spent the day collecting weapons of war from NATO territory following a night of interceptions. Some drones nearly intact, others fragmented after a Russian aerial assault on Ukraine spilled into neighboring Poland. We are most likely dealing with a large-scale provocation, said Poland's Prime Minister Donald Tusk. Earlier in the day, while speaking to Parliament, he said the situation brings us the closest we have been to open conflict since World War II. Poland says 19 Russian objects violated its airspace Tuesday night into Wednesday morning. Those deemed a threat were shot down with the help of NATO. Russia's defense ministry says it did not plan to attack Poland.
Whether it was intentionally or not, it is absolutely reckless.
NATO Secretary General acknowledged Poland's request for consultations under Article 4. That does not trigger a defensive response, but a discussion on next steps.
I've asked our UK armed forces to look at options to bolster NATO's air defence over Poland.
Canada's Minister of National Defence said multiple parties are gathering information about the violations.
Given the extent to which President Putin has been called out, his unwillingness to have adult conversations about ceasefires, the games he appears to be playing, these are worrisome, but to a large extent also predictable.
Just last week, Poland scrambled jets to protect its airspace from Russian violations. The difference this time is the scale of the incident. It's the Russian president probing NATO boundaries, says this Polish professor.
This is like, the next step of Putin basically trying to see what works with NATO, where the limit actually is of his actions.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky tonight is calling for a joint system of defense to create an air shield over Europe. Crystal Gomansing, CBC News, London.
Israel is facing a new wave of backlash tonight after its deadly strike in Qatar targeting Hamas leaders. Paul Hunter now with the global condemnation, including new comments from Canada.
Inside Gaza, this again. The day after that stunning Israeli strike targeting Hamas leaders in Qatar, yet another strike here. What do we feel? Said Abu Ala Kudai. Absolute terror. While north of Tel Aviv, Israeli demonstrators shouted at Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to end the war with Hamas now. But from Netanyahu himself, defiance.
And I say to Qatar and all nations who harbor terrorists, you either expel them or you bring them to justice. Because if you don't, we will.
The deadly strike in Qatar left the Hamas leadership intact, says Hamas, but it has upended attempts at any ceasefire in the Israel-Hamas war, and it's further fueled pushback against Israel.
Europe needs to do more.
the European Union Commission calling for trade sanctions against Israel. And to the question, will Canada now also consider such sanctions, said Foreign Affairs Minister Anita Anand.
We are evaluating the relationship with Israel.
Anand's office later saying what she meant is that Canada is, quote, constantly monitoring the situation.
This is state terror. That's what they call it.
Qatar itself now speaking out, its prime minister slamming Netanyahu at length.
We were thinking that we are dealing with civilized people. That's the way we are dealing with others. And the action that he took, it's very, I cannot describe it, but it's a barbaric action.
And unacceptable for the world, he said, adding Qatar is now organizing an Arab Islamic summit for the coming days to consider next steps. Paul Hunter, CBC News, Washington.
The man accused of killing 11 people at a Filipino street festival in Vancouver earlier this year has been found mentally fit to stand trial. Kaiji Adam Low is accused of driving an SUV into a crowd at the Lapu-Lapu Day Festival back in April. He faces 11 counts of second-degree murder, and today a judge revealed 31 additional charges, all linked to the surviving victims. Tomorrow, Prime Minister Mark Carney is expected to announce the first batch of major projects aimed at reshaping this country, and tonight we can tell you what they will be. Rafi Boudjikanian is in Edmonton, where the Prime Minister is meeting with his caucus. So, Rafi, can you take us through what we've learned?
Adrian, our colleague Kate McKenna got a hold of the list the government is set to reveal tomorrow. Now, it is a preliminary list. We're told everything on it is accurate. It was shared with CBC News confidentially. Top of it is the LNG terminal expansion in Kitimat, BC. It would double LNG Canada's production of liquefied natural gas, and that would be aimed at markets in Asia and Europe. Next, about an hour east of Toronto, would be the Darlington nuclear project that would make Canada the first G7 country to have a small modular reactor. Prime Minister Carney has previously alluded to a Port of Montreal expansion project, and that will be the third one on this list that's sent to the Major Projects Office for approval. And rounding out the list are mine expansions in northwestern British Columbia and Saskatchewan.
Okay, so it's interesting. What doesn't appear to be on that list, Rafi, is an oil pipeline.
Yes, a Liberal source has said that there is just nobody in the private sector who's willing to build an oil pipeline right now. But Ottawa is also saying that this is not by any means a final list, that they're willing to revisit this decision in the future. Alberta Premier Danielle Smith says that's something she's going to take them up on. She's, of course, a vocal proponent of pipelines, and she says it's federal regulations that are killing any enthusiasm in the industry to build a pipeline. She's going to get to work on trying to convince the government on repealing those regulations, and that's something that's sure to create tension among the environmentally minded MPs in Carney's caucus.
All right, thank you. That's Rafi Boudjikanian reporting in Edmonton. Well, there's outrage tonight in Alberta after a woman charged with murder pleaded guilty to manslaughter in the death and abuse of an 8-year-old girl.
It really is a matter of last resort to kind of speak for a victim that can't speak for themselves.
What family members are saying and calls for the province to intervene next. Plus, the rise of online medical misinformation.
This is a good example of influencers on TikTok pushing unproven ideas.
A new warning tonight about the potentially deadly costs. And later, revelations from an acclaimed CBC News foreign correspondent.
Eventually, the truth does come out, and it tends to be far worse than people expected.
My interview with Brian Stewart. We're back in 2. Those are students running in fear moments after U.S. political activist Charlie Kirk was fatally shot as he spoke to a crowd of university students in Utah. Kirk was a rising star of the MAGA movement who had close ties to Donald Trump. Eli Glasner will join us in about 10 minutes to unpack his life and his hefty influence. But first, to to Edmonton, where there is outrage tonight after a woman charged with murdering a little girl pleaded guilty to manslaughter. As Julia Wong tells us, both police and the girl's family call the plea deal a miscarriage of justice.
Outside the Edmonton courthouse, anger from relatives of an 8-year-old girl killed 2 years ago. A woman originally charged with first-degree murder pleaded guilty to manslaughter as part of a plea agreement. The accused and victim cannot be identified because of a publication ban. CBC News is concealing the identity of the girl's family.
We're outraged right now as to what happened here today.
Plea deals are not unusual. They are a negotiation between the prosecution and defense. Edmonton police are now calling on provincial justice officials to review and rescind the plea agreement, saying since it relates to extreme child abuse, the plea of a lesser charge is a significant miscarriage of justice.
It really is a matter of last resort to kind of speak for a victim that can't speak for themselves here.
Finally, somebody is hearing us.
Somebody's hearing our voice. Somebody's able to speak up for us.
The girl went missing from Edmonton in 2023. Her body was found in a hockey bag in Musquecheese, Alberta, a few days later. The accused and the girl are not biologically related. This former homicide detective says while he understands the frustration from police, he has concerns.
The justice system cannot be a political tool. This can't be something that happens in a bunch of cases. There's no arm's length anymore.
Alberta's premier agrees with what Edmonton police are doing.
I'm glad they are. I think that if the Crown Prosecution Service declines to prosecute or take things to trial, they need to go public with their reasons.
This former Crown prosecutor says those comments undermine the justice system.
It puts pressure on them and makes it difficult to use their experience and their discretion and their professional training to do the best job they can.
A spokesperson for the Alberta Crown Prosecution Service said it would be inappropriate to comment on the case. The accused has another court appearance later this month. Julia Wong, CBC News, Edmonton.
A warning tonight from the Canadian Medical Association about the harm being caused by health misinformation.
I've had a patient die from ignoring her symptoms.
How some are fighting back to debunk online myths. Plus, more on our top story, the shooting death of a high-profile conservative activist in the U.S. Who was Charlie Kirk, and what is the measure of his vast political influence? And his reporting around the globe moved hearts and minds and was a catalyst for real change.
I've seen evil that just appalls me and is worse than anything I would have imagined, probably. But I've seen angels.
Legendary CBC News correspondent Brian Stewart on his long, storied career and the toll it took on him. The National breaks down the stories shaping our world. Next. That is a convoy of cars arriving at Clarence House, the London residence of King Charles. That is where the palace says the king had tea with his son, Prince Harry. It's their first meeting in nearly 2 years. The two have been estranged since Harry and Meghan left royal life and moved to California. Well, there's a warning tonight about the rise of medical misinformation. The Canadian Medical Association says science is under attack and it's putting patients' lives at risk. Alison Northcott now with the concerns and possible countermeasures.
It is safe to say that we need to check other sources.
16-year-old Chloe Casito is a teen fact-checker debunking health myths online.
To show other teenagers online that they are capable of determining whether a claim online is misinformation or if it's correct.
The Canadian Medical Association says false health information is causing serious harm to patients. In a statement warning misinformation is increasingly shaping public discourse, public beliefs, and policy actions.
This is a good example of influencers on TikTok pushing unproven ideas about sunscreen.
Timothy Caulfield, who studies misinformation around science and health, says experts need to speak out.
To stand in solidarity with entities around the world that are really struggling against regressive movements. And of course, the United States is the strongest example of that, but we're seeing it really everywhere.
The CMA points to examples of popular misinformation, including around vaccines, and underscores current evidence shows vaccines do not cause or increase the risk for autism. Dr. Joseph Daheen treats patients in the intensive care unit, but also takes time to talk about his work on social media because he's seen the harms of misinformation firsthand.
I've had a patient die from ignoring her symptoms and had metastatic breast cancer. And I had an elderly gentleman who was brainwashed at the time of COVID, thinking that this didn't exist, and actually died because he refused our care.
Kizito says countering false claims doesn't have to be complicated.
Sometimes all it takes is a Google search. Sometimes all it takes is using a fact-checking website.
The Canadian Medical Association says improving access to primary care would help too, so people can ask their doctor about their health instead of relying on the internet. Alison Northcott, CBC News, Montreal.
Now it's time to dig deeper into the stories shaping our world. He witnessed firsthand some of the most consequential stories of our time, but former CBC correspondent Brian Stewart still wears the emotional scars of all the things he's seen.
A wound to the soul, and that's exactly what it is. It's kind of a spiritual hurt.
Our conversation is coming up, but first. Shocking moments on a Utah University campus when right-wing activist and commentator Charlie Kirk is shot during a speaking event. Who was Charlie Kirk, and how do you measure his influence? Eli Glasner breaks down how he became an important Trump ally and what today's violence could mean to the conservative movement.
What made Charlie Kirk important? Just look at the crowd at the very rally where he was shot, the first stop in the America Comeback Tour. A sea of red and white hats, enthusiastic young men and women. This is why President Trump kept Kirk close, and some credit him with Trump's re-election win.
His message did connect with a lot of young white male voters.
And here was Kirk the moment he learned Trump had been reelected.
And no one has worked harder than Charlie for this. I am just humbled by God.
El Hardy is a journalist who covers the religious right.
He certainly was always a conservative. He grew up in the suburbs of Chicago. He went to church.
Greetings and welcome back,
As a young man, he tuned in to right-wing talk radio star Rush Limbaugh. At 18, he co-founded Turning Point USA, a conservative youth organization. In 2016, he became the youngest person to ever speak at a Republican convention. As the popularity of Turning Point grew, so did his influence. Like Trump, Kirk understood the importance of entertaining the crowd.
So it is, bursts of music, rallying people up with, very, at times, vicious political rhetoric, but also having fun. Understanding that for a lot of people, politics is becoming a form of entertainment.
And that is something Kirk keyed into.
He's just such a fascinating person, and since you really don't get to see very many Republicans in the media.
This actually brings me so much joy because I felt so isolated in how I thought.
He had a really big audience. His podcasts would get 500,000 or 750,000 people every day I saw. And he was connecting with young voters,
which played a critical role in the election.
You're talking about a lot of people who are undecided, who are open to persuasion, unlike the older voters.
Connecting with audiences while ramping up the rhetoric.
He was a denier of a lot of truthful things. He was an anti-vaxxer. He denied the election results in 2020. He equated abortion with the Holocaust. A lot of really out there conspiracy theories. Talked about replacement of whites.
We are a country of immigrants. See,
no, we're not. No. We're a country of settlers, not of immigrants.
Okay.
But Trump, who joined TikTok in part at Kirk's suggestion, clearly saw his usefulness.
I won the young people by 37%. No Republicans ever won, and I won by 37%. And Charlie Kirk will tell you TikTok helped. But Charlie Kirk helped also.
A social media savvy personality and organizer, Kirk helped modernize the Republican Party's appeal. His success made him a critical part of the Trump inner circle with frequent visits to the White House. Now, in the wake of violence, some wonder what will fill the vacuum.
Kirk has become so emblematic of the transformation of conservatives under Trump. Trump to them started out as a political figure, but now he's very much a spiritual one, almost messianic. And I think within that framework, Charlie Kirk is going to become a martyr to this movement. And we can only hope that more violence doesn't follow.
So that was Eli Glasner reporting. Utah Republican Governor Spencer Cox called today's shooting a political assassination and promises the perpetrator will be caught and tried. He issued a reminder that his state still has the death penalty. Coming up, the storied career of foreign correspondent Brian Stewart placed him as a witness to important world events and a catalyst for change.
We're crying in the stadium. People across the world were responding. Staggering amounts of money poured in.
The life and insights of an award-winning journalist. That's next.
Eventually, the truth does come out, and it tends to be far worse than people expected.
When Brian Stewart offers insight into efforts to shut out or silence journalists in the world today, you do well to listen.
I'm Brian Stewart, on assignment in Brazil.
The celebrations here in Kuwait City have been building through the day.
He's a groundbreaking foreign correspondent, a scholar of world affairs, and where we work, he's a legend. Come on in, you.
Hi.
A little bit of This Is Your Life in here. How are you? Thank you. A journalist whose work has had huge impact.
I'd like to introduce a video made by CBC television.
It was his team's images on the famine in Ethiopia, shown to an audience of more than 1 billion, that helped to make Live Aid in the 1980s the biggest fundraising concert in history. This is a little older than your era here.
Oh my gosh.
I guess this is closer to sort of the late 90s, eh, for you?
Yeah, I'm thinking of all the fabulous camera people we had.
He's finally written about all he witnessed, how the ghosts of the toughest days still haunt.
There, the uncontrolled fear began again.
And what he sees coming. Come have a seat. Okay. We're surrounded by some newer tech, so this is an excellent time to talk about it. Welcome home.
Oh, thank you very much. It's very moving to be back. You know.
Is it?
Always, every time I come here.
When you walk through the doors here, I wonder if you were to sort of pull out your dusty reporting boots again and be in a position to advocate to go somewhere to report. Right now, where would you be advocating to be?
Honestly, I'd have to advocate where I would least like to be, and that is in Gaza. I think that's a responsibility of media, of world media. The world's called upon to be concerned, engaged. It certainly has a right to ask for reporting from there.
You know, on Gaza, that's the answer for all of us in here.
Yeah.
We know how many Palestinian journalists have been lost in this war. And people like the freelancer who works for CBC are risking absolutely everything. And they're doing a phenomenal job. But without the eyes and ears of journalists from the rest of the world, what do you think is lost?
Well, what you want is people who've seen other conflicts, been in conflicts before, so they're geared up to know some of the worst that they're going to see, be prepared for it, and then be overwhelmed at times when they see something they could never have prepared for, which you and I have both been in that situation. And then it's up to you to report honestly and without bias to the people, and your reputation's on the line. You know that. You know you can be destroyed if your reporting's off.
A chief objective of El Salvador's tired soldiers is to prevent...
Forces have very real fears today that they could be dragged ever deeper into the Lebanese...
An extra 9,000 troops are standing by to block possible Protestant loyalist violence.
Brian Stewart, CBC News, in Santiago, Chile. Belfast.
Beirut.
Mekelle, Ethiopia.
When we talk about making a difference in journalism, forever there will be one story, one place, one person connected to you. What am I talking about?
Burhan will do, yeah. Just an amazing personal story.
Throughout northern Ethiopia, aid efforts are overrun by the sheer mass of the starving and the sick. Some faces stand out.
We've seen hundreds and hundreds of refugees from the famine who had been on the road for days and escaping wild hyenas and what have you. And were there, and many of them pneumonia, were sick. And out of the corner of my eye, I saw a young girl of 3 collapse and hit the pavement.
The sisters did all they could, but they had seen so many cases like this before.
No, there isn't anything we can do at this point for the child. The child will die very soon, maybe within 15 minutes.
So we took final shots, and I left her because so she could die in dignity. And hours later, our crew had been shaken by this. We went back to see the burial, and we saw this cluster of people in the feeding center, and they all had smiles on their face. You didn't see smiles in Ethiopia at that time. And we went there, and the nurse was holding the child in her arms, and everybody was smiling, weeping.
Sister, we may have had a bit of luck this morning, did we?
Yes,
possible.
She's had an injection. She's had some rehydration fluid, and hopefully she will survive.
That was the beginning of a saga of Burhan will do.
Recently, again touring McKelly, we made one special detour. As for the future, one would like to be hopeful, but life will not be easy for anyone here in coming years.
At some stage, our wonderful editor, Colin Dean, had put together a link of images, which is what we're talking about, images of horror, images of children starving, freezing in this horrible situation, which ended on the face of Burhan will do.
Musicians from around the world are 11 hours into a marathon rock concert going on simultaneously in Britain and the United States. The concert is being televised to millions of others to raise money for starving people in Africa.
And during Live Aid in 1985, they weren't getting much money halfway through. They decided to play this CBC strip of video.
I'd like to introduce a video made by CBC television. Please send your money in.
At the end was Burhan's face. People were crying in the stadium. People across the world were responding. Staggering amounts of money poured in. She was called back again in 2005 for Live Aid 2, really. She was on stage singing with Madonna, and she and I were brought to the Oprah Winfrey show. And I kept saying, this is incredible where you are. And he said, yes, but I have to go back and do my exams. And we've just stayed in touch, even through the late war in Ethiopia, where so many were lost. But we've stayed in touch with the whole family, and we were talking on Zoom, actually, just this last weekend. The bottom line was there, what I saw in the face, I remember thinking, if Burhan can survive, it means Ethiopia can survive. So her face became a symbol of how people can come back from these catastrophes. Don't give up on people, because they can survive and have a second life.
I think that one of the interesting and cruel things about being a foreign correspondent is that in this dusty yard, there are probably 3 or 4 Burhans.
Absolutely so. But there comes a time when it's a single person. In throughout history, that has been the case. The girl running from Nepal in Vietnam, the poor child in Syria, dead. You can go back almost all the wars, the war in China against Japan, this child sitting alone amongst the rubble. That single image of the child can move people in a way that the story of 500 people won't. I'm thinking of that now with Gaza, you know. How many of those young children are having their futures really diminished, the possibilities, because of malnutrition, weeks and months and months and months on end. So it's the most horrible thing, famine. It's just, of all the things I've witnessed, including war, it's the cruelest in some ways, because it's a slow death of people in front of their parents, in front of their children, in front of their friends. It's people taking long strangers to walk with them because they want to be buried by somebody when they die, and they know they're not going to make it. It's hyenas at night that were starving because the cattle are all gone. I saw the body of a woman half eaten by a hyena, and a kid whose hand had been bitten off. You're seeing things that are kind of nightmarish. They're out of the worst case scenario nightmare.
When I hear you talk evocatively, it occurs to me that there's a cost to telling these stories, and I'm curious what all those decades of telling those stories took from you.
And I didn't realize the cost, but years later, what I was struck by was the memories of people that desperately needed to live, needed our help. And I'm a journalist standing by with his safari suit and his full pockets, and they're looking up with a dead child or a dying child, and here's this guy standing there.
Useless, eh?
Useless. You never felt so small. I mean, I never in my life felt smaller than I did during the Ethiopian crisis, when the catastrophe was so much bigger than even my imagination. I found later, when I had a mental breakdown, basically a nervous breakdown, it was due back to the scenes that I'd witnessed where it left me with a guilt feeling, a tremendous guilt feeling. There's a term for this I learned, something called moral injury, which is called an injury to a wound to the soul, and that's exactly what it is. It's kind of a spiritual hurt, a feeling that you were trained to be better. You were supposed to be a better person. You could have saved some lives. You know you could have stopped that van and taken in 2 refugee family members. And yes, ultimately, the stories had a huge impact and helped many people, but somehow that doesn't entirely get you off the hook from feeling years later, 20, 30 years later, you know, I wish we'd stopped that van. I do wish.
You're describing it very, very thoughtfully now, but in the moment when you're in a crisis like that, like how did it show up for you? It
started with a series of anxiety attacks, tingling of hands, inability to talk, blurriness, some aura fixation.
Sounds like a stroke.
It sounded very much like a stroke. In fact, the night I had it in full blast, a sister-in-law was a nurse, phoned and told my wife, get him to hospital, he's having a stroke. Overnight, it cleared up miraculously. It all went away, and I left cheerfully. And then it happened a second time, and that's when I came in touch with this marvelous psychiatrist, Anthony Feinstein, who's revered in journalism circles as the man who made journalism face up to the mental wounds that reporters suffer. PTSD is one form, more psychologically as moral injury.
Is that what you had,
moral injury is what I didn't have PTSD. I was tested for that. I didn't have it.
There's no easy way out for El Salvador. Usually the innocent suffer most.
If I think in any degree of depth about things I saw, things I wish I had done, I get quite emotional. I also get tremendously emotional about the great things I saw, like the acts of courage and the acts of wonderful human behavior. I've seen evil that just appalls me and is worse than anything I would have imagined. But I've seen angels. You have too. You know that. You know what I'm talking about.
My last question is, you seem good to me. Are you?
I am. You know, I get this enormous pleasure out of small things. It doesn't take a lot to keep me very happy. I've got a great marriage. I've got a great daughter. I've got great friends. I'm back reading about ancient Greek stuff now because I want to get as far away from the swirl of the vortex as possible for a while. So I'm back to Homer.
I don't blame you at all. You've got a hell of a story. Thank you, Brian.
Good luck to you.
Thank you. And we couldn't let Brian go without getting his analysis on the current state of the world. So you can check out our extended conversation, including Brian's take on Donald Trump and today's rapidly changing news cycle, by going to our YouTube channel. We have more ahead, and our moment is next. Stay with us. So you're looking right there at Paul Vercher, who's standing beside his paddleboard that he just used to travel, get this, all the way around the entirety of Vancouver Island. Obviously not an easy feat, but after weeks of exercise and a lot of patience, his journey came to a close, and tonight the Vancouver Island voyage makes our moment.
When you're on a paddleboard, it doesn't matter how fast you're paddling, you're still not going very fast.
Right like the wind.
I circumnavigated Vancouver Island. I started in Ladysmith. It was a very arduous journey. It took 36 days of paddling over a 40-day period. And the total distance was about 1,300 kilometers. I had headwinds pretty much 80% of the time. My whole life, I've always wanted to do a big, long distance, endurance event. When I was on the water, I had a lot of time to think. That's all you do, because for 8 hours, you're just thinking. But you're never truly alone, because I'm constantly surrounded by the marine mammals and shore mammals. At the end of every day, I'd have to find a safe location to camp. I learned a lot about myself. If anything, I learned to be a little more patient. I was almost sad to know it was ending. Almost sad.
Okay, this sounds like hard work, but also a bit of a dream to be able to do this. And in terms of being kept company, when he was pushed a little bit, like what did you see? Lots of whales, lots of black bears, wolves, sea otters, and then he was able to talk to himself. From all of us at The National, thank you for being with us. I'm Adrienne Arsenault. Take care.